Okay, everyone, this is just a re-recording of the section for the use of equations and equation-driven design from the webinar, university webinar. Let me just turn off some of my add-ins here. Okay, so with equation-driven webinars, you want to make sure your base sketches and features are driven by dimensions you can easily reference. So for instance, I'm just going to start a sketch on the front plane with a rectangle. I'm going to add two dimensions, one for the length. Now you can type these in, but you can also change the name. So I can make this one length, and it'll save that as the name for that dimension. So you'll see it says length at sketch 1. For the one on the side, I'm going to make that and call that height, and just say OK. Now I have two variables I can reference in other equations if I want to drive those. So let's extrude this, and I'm going to create a custom variable here. So this one's going to be depth. So as soon as you put an equal sign next to any dimension or place where you enter a dimension and you start typing, if you press enter now, with this icon it's saying if you press enter now, it's going to create a global variable. And now this can be driven from anywhere within Solidworks from your equations toolbar. So it's going to ask create new global variable, and then if I change it here, it should also change the global variable. Now as soon as you've created a global variable, there should be equation toolbar over here. If you can't find it there, you can find it up here by going to insert, tools, equations. And if I open this up, you'll see one, it lists all the variables I have available to me. Now, let me just stop that. So any global variables I've created, as well as any specific equations that exist. So you'll see here for some reason, I didn't create my D1 boss correctly. So if I go back to my sketch, height, this one is length. Okay, so no, everything was created correctly. If I go to the equations here, you'll see the depth of the boss extrude 1 feature is equal to depth, the global variable. Now what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to change the base sketch so this always remains a cube. So this, just double click on it. If you're having trouble where it does this, instead of providing you this on the side, just turn off Instant 2D and it should give you the option to type it in. So I'm going to say equal and say select from the drop down, select depth and press OK. So you'll see it adds an ampersand sign there, or not an ampersand, an epsilon sign, saying this is now equation driven. Now if you don't put in the equal sign, if you just select the global variable, it'll add the value, but it's not going to update based on what the value updates. So it'll grab the value once, or whatever it is currently, and then continue using that one value all throughout. So we're just going to set that equal as such, and there we have a part. I'm going to make a few extra changes. I'm going to convert this to a sheet metal, just for make this a bit more interesting. And I'm going to add some holes, mounting holes. So let's say countersink M2, let's make it M5 position. Add 2 dots and add a center line here. I'm going to dimension the dots around the center line. So this one's going to be I'm going to make another value for the equations. I'm going to name this mounting width. Actually, cancel that. So if we want to measure the total width, we can select the dimension as such, and if you move the cursor beyond the bar, it measures as if it were a symmetric measurement. So we're going to do that, equal m width, create that variable. We can also create an m height. You'll see this cursor is still blue and it still says underdefined here. I'm just going to make this symmetric with that around this axis. So Control select all three, select symmetric, and there you go. So press OK now, it creates that. Now I'm going to copy this to the other faces. I'm going to say dangle because I'm just going to repair that soon. Say here, dangle, and sitting here, dangle. Okay. So it's created all three of them, but they have dimensions that it doesn't know exactly what to do with. So what I will do is, let us change our base feature, because the issue is coming in where it's extruding towards one direction. So in this plane, there's no center mark there. So if I make this a mid-plane extrusion, some of these issues will be very easy to solve. I'm just going to say, edit the sketch, and you'll see there's the dangling dimension. Now this one's fairly easy, just drag it to this bottom edge here. This one I am going to, here it is, just drag that onto that edge, and this one just select. I'm just going to delete that, and make coincident with the origin. Now let's see if this is going to be a bit easier to copy that one to the other side. So let's take this. Also, let's put this equal to the m height. And you'll see here I made a mistake with this dimension here. Let's make that m width. Press OK. I'm going to ask you if you want to create the variable. Just select yes, and let's make that 70. Just revoke both. This one also needs to be equal to m width. And let's just edit this to be 10. Okay. So now I'm just going to copy these around. Actually, I'm just going to leave it as it is. So if we change our equations here, so let's say I don't want this box to be 100 mils by 100 mils. I want it to be, let's say, 250. If I press OK, you'll see it rebuilds it. But I still want these to be, I don't want them to be that close. I actually want them to move with the design. So if we go back to our equations, the m width, we're going to turn this into an actual equation. So from delete whatever values in there, select the depth option, and let's subtract 20. So it'll be 10 mil from each side. That's theoretically. Let's make that 40. So if I say OK now, you'll see, now if I change the, I'm going to pick this option on for it to change it as I change the variables, but if I make this, say, 150, they adjust with my design. So that's the power of equation-driven design. This is a fairly simple example. I'm just going to go ahead and close this and then open up my other example. So let's see here, demo files, that's gazebo. Yeah. Okay, so this is a gazebo I've drawn with weldments, and we'll cover weldments in a later webinar. So I've drawn this with weldments, and it's drawn with a base sketch and then just a sketch showing the vertical section, and that is all patterned to make use of the base sketches and everything. So I have some powerful equations driving this. So if I change the circumference of this, everything updates automatically for me. Now I can even change the height. Make this taller, and I can change the number of sides. Now, fairly simple. Now I've made this so if it's more than 4 sides, it actually adds a little roof structure at the top. So if I make this 5, it adds that structure in, and I can vary the angle of that as well. So we can go ridiculous with this, make it extremely large. As you can see, there's quite a bit of power in something like this. Now, this is quite similar to what I did earlier. You'll see there's a few equations directly in some of the dimensions. So the one telling it, let's see here, D1 at sketch, so the one telling it the angle between some sides is the 360, so a full circle divided by the number of sides. The interesting part here is this if statement. So let's just cancel that, get it back to where it was. Okay. So you'll see I have an if statement here. And this basically says if the size, number of sides, so the variable sides, is larger than 4, then unsuppress the roof feature. And you'll see here which feature it's applied to, and then suppress it. So it's quite simple to add this. So you just select the specific feature you want to suppress or unsuppress. So you'll see that feature there, the sketch, and then I can just type in my if statement, or you can select if from the function list here, and then just say which variable you want to use. So let's say height greater than 3,000, or let's use the circumference, because obviously if it's large enough, then you'll have to use, so greater than 4,000, unsuppress, and if you just type it in, it pops up, so you can just select that, comma, type in suppress, and then it just fills that out. See here, so if I change this to 5,000, it unsuppresses that sketch. So just really powerful tools. Now you can make this all configuration driven. So we'll go into the depth of configuration as well. So let's add a 5-sided configuration. Let's even add a 4-sided one. So what I can do is go into my equations, then you'll see next to any of the variables, if you select them, there's this drop down here. So normally when you change it, it changes for all the configurations. You can specify for which configurations you want to change it. So in our case, we are currently in the, see here, the 4-sided configuration. You can see that there, or up here in the configuration tab. I'm going to make this, select this configuration option, and make that 4. Press OK. It says there's a syntax error somewhere. I think this is the syntax error. It doesn't. Let's see. This one. Just say okay. Get back to changing this. So we changed that for that specific configuration. You can change the configuration up here as well. So I'm going to switch to the 5-sided one and just change this to 5. And there we go. Now you don't have to press OK to change that feature. Let's say 4-sided one. Let's make that, or let's change the default one to 6. If I change that, you can just switch configurations, and it should change it. So tell it yes, and it will take those changes. So if I switch to the default one, that's a 6-sided option. And that's how to use equations. If you want to go more in depth, learn more about equations, just go to, so this is SolidWorks 2020. The help sits over here in Service Pack 3, but it should sit over here in 2019. And let me show you that quickly. Just wait for that to open up. Close that. So you see there's help here. Go to the tutorials. And there's specifically a tutorial on one design tables. These are really useful, similar to equations, but under advanced techniques, there's an equation option. So you can go through that, or you can either use the search bar up here. Make sure from this drop down it's set to help, and we can search equation. Or you can just Google SolidWorks help equation, and it'll appear. So I'm just going to select equations there, and you'll see here's everything you need to know about equations. So hope you guys can use this to make designs. It's really useful for designing a part once, and if it has just different sizing or small differences in terms of mounting holes, and you can just drive everything with equations and configurations and easily make the part once and then just change a few variables and have everything done for you automatically. Hope you guys found that useful, and yeah, try out, use it in SolidWorks, see what you can make.